etapa ya básicamente es la donación del servicio de la nueva deuda para la conservación de Galápagos. A grosso modo, la primera etapa, que tiene que ver con la emisión del bono GPS y la compra de bonos internacionales, como podemos apreciar, intervienen tres instancias. Aquí es muy importante especificar que las instancias son de carácter privado, es decir, el gobierno ecuatoriano no interviene en esta etapa. El proceso arranca cuando la OFC gestiona un seguro de riesgos políticos con la DFC con el objetivo de implementar una operación de canje de deuda para la conservación de la Reserva Marina de Galápagos. Paralelamente, la misma OFC contrata a Credit Suisse como operador, ¿para qué? Con el objetivo de que se constituya en el estructurador financiero de la operación de canje de deuda. Simultáneamente, Credit Suisse constituye un vehículo especial que se denomina GPS Blues, con el único propósito de servir como medio de implementación financiera de la operación de canje de deuda. Siendo así, el 26 de abril de este ejercicio fiscal, Credit Suisse lanza un tender office con el único propósito de servir como medio de implementación de la operación de canje de deuda por naturaleza. Constituyéndose de este modo, el 9 de mayo se cierra la operación a través de que el Credit Suisse realiza la emisión de su bono con recursos levantados a través de dicho bono. Paga a los tenedores de bonos soberanos que aceptan vender sus bonos dentro del rango de precios establecidos en el Tender Office. Este rango de precios es el único que es proporcionado por el Estado ecuatoriano. Para la segunda fase, que ya corresponde al canje de deuda per se, encontramos que el vehículo GPS Blue entrega al MEP la totalidad de los bonos adquiridos en el mercado por el valor nominal de 1.600 millones. El MEP recibe ese valor nominal de esos bonos y los da de baja, reduciendo así de manera inmediata el saldo de la deuda. A cambio, el MEP asume una nueva obligación de deuda denominada GPS Blue por un monto total de 156 millones de dólares, equivalente al monto que GPS Blue pagó por la compra de los bonos en el mercado. La recompra, como podemos ver en el cuadro, constituye en el año más alto 1.000 millones en el 2035, 420 en el 2040 y 202 en el 2030. Es importante citar que para esta operación el MEP contrata una garantía con el Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo con una cobertura de 85 millones, sobre la cual se paga una comisión del 0,85% anual aproximadamente, siendo 690,000 por año, monto que se mantendrá activo durante todo el proceso de la operación del canje de deuda. La tercera y última etapa de este proceso es el servicio de donación de la deuda. En este proceso interviene el GPS Blue, realiza una donación de parte del servicio de la deuda correspondiente a la Comisión de Conservación de 18 millones por año a una corporación sin fines de lucro denominada Galápagos Life Fund. Se trata de una donación estrictamente de carácter privado también, ya que los recursos pertenecen al GPS Blues y no a la República del Ecuador. Esto es muy importante citar porque aquí existe una línea sutil entre en qué fase interviene el Estado ecuatoriano como tal, al contraer la deuda y la obligación de pago, en qué fase interviene el sector público ecuatoriano en su rol de administrar y en qué fase interviene el sector privado. Es por ello que para asegurar que los recursos sean destinados a los programas y proyectos alineados a los objetivos de conservación del país, de los 11 miembros que constituyen el Galápagos Life Fund, 5 pertenecen a al Ministerio de Estado de la República del Ecuador, cuya política pública tienen que ver con el ejercicio de regulación para orientar la máxima eficiencia de estos recursos. Adicionalmente, existen 3 representantes del sector pesquero de Galápagos y también 3 miembros extranjeros del sector privado. Es importante resaltar que adicionalmente adquirimos 18 compromisos como parte de la operación y de los términos y condiciones financieras, 18 compromisos que tienen que ser cumplidos por las entidades del sector ecuatoriano, dentro de las cuales tenemos que el Ministerio de Ambiente, Agua y Transición Ecológica deberá cumplir con 11 compromisos, mientras que 7 compromisos los deberá cumplir el Ministerio de Producción. De los 11 compromisos, 3 compromisos son sin multas asociadas, 8 compromisos son con multas asociadas para el Ministerio de Ambiente, Agua y Transición Ecológica, mientras que para el Ministerio de Producción 1 no tiene multa asociada y 6 son con multas asociadas. Yéndonos al resultado per se ya de la operación de canje de deuda, como podemos apreciar, lo que se ha conseguido como el resultado es que la parte de la reserva marina se incremente hasta casi las costas, hasta casi la frontera de costera con Costa Rica, incrementándose a 60.000 kilómetros cuadrados la reserva marina La Hermandad, de los cuales 30.000 kilómetros se declaran como zona no FIS. Se crea un plan de manejo de reserva marina La Hermandad y una evaluación de la ejecución en 5 años. Se implementará un sistema de monitoreo de embarcaciones. Se limita el uso del FAD de acuerdo al CIER. Existe un protocolo de monitoreo oceanográfico y climático de la reserva marina y también un desarrollo de plan de investigación de la reserva, una inclusión de la reserva como parte de la reserva marina de la biosfera de Galápagos. Cuando hablamos de los resultados de la deuda pública ecuatoriana, es importantísimo mirar que la comisión de los 18 millones por año que se entregarán suman en total 333 millones, que es la suma completa, durante toda la vida útil de la transacción. Y se considera dentro del costo financiero del nuevo financiamiento. De estos 18.000, 13 son para financiar programas y proyectos públicos de conservación de Galápagos, y mientras que 5 millones se constituirán en un fondo patrimonial que puede realizar inversiones financieras para incrementar su valor. Adicionalmente, se gestionan otras donaciones privadas y se espera que el monto total destinado a la conservación sea alrededor de 450 millones de dólares durante toda la vida útil de la transacción. Como se puede ver, el círculo de articulación, tanto público y privado, se completa cuando el MEF tiene la obligación por la Comisión de Conservación con el GPS Blue. El GPS Blue dona el derecho al cobro al Galápagos Life Fund. El MEF paga el servicio de la deuda de manera directa al Galápagos Life Fund. El Galápagos Life Fund recibe los recursos como parte de una donación estrictamente privada, y a su vez, el Galápagos financia proyectos públicos y privados para la conservación de Galápagos. Los resultados de la deuda pública ecuatoriana con la transacción tenemos distribuidos en el saldo de deuda pública, que se genera un ahorro de 972.4 millones de dólares. Esto equivale al 80% del PIB. Como podemos apreciar en la lámina, recibimos una deuda de 1.600.000 y el Estado ecuatoriano, producto de la transacción, se convierte en deudor de 656 millones de dólares. Si es que hablamos del servicio de la deuda, es decir, capital más intereses, los valores serían correspondientes a 2.700.000, 1.600.000 que recibiría el Estado ecuatoriano, produciéndose un ahorro de 1.115.000. Si tienen que quedarse con algo de la presentación de este momento, por favor les pido quédense con este gráfico. Este gráfico es completamente ilustrativo de cómo ha bajado el nivel de la deuda de cuando yo arranqué mi presentación, donde teníamos muy marcados los picos 2026 y 2031, de cuán apretado iba a estar en términos fiscales el Estado ecuatoriano. Cuando vemos la barra amarilla con la transacción de canje de deuda, podemos apreciar que si bien todavía seguimos con picos y los mismos años muy altos, pero en términos proporcionales se ha obtenido una homologación general de la deuda en los próximos 10 años. Y este es el mensaje que quisiera transmitir y que quisiera que queden ustedes, que los canjes de deudas pueden ser el fruto de un gran resultado que libere la presión fiscal que tenemos algunos países. Eso es todo en mi intervención.
Entonces, empiezo con la primera pregunta ya sobre esto, que una de las cosas que pensamos es que una transacción como esta lleva mucho tiempo, ¿no? Y muchas cosas. ¿Tú podrías nos decir cuál consideras que fueron los momentos cruciales en la intervención del gobierno ecuatoriano en este canje de deuda?
Los momentos cruciales los puedo catalogar en dos partes. El primero, el reto de romper la verticalidad, sector público, sector privado e instituciones que intervenían en el proceso. Y el segundo, ya la firma en sí del canje de deuda como tal.
Muy interesante, ¿no? Eric, in English is better, right? What was the role of Ocean's Finance? And like we saw here in the slides, like that, but and the private sector in this operation. But how does it actually work, and how are the conversations with the private sector? Now we all talk about like mobilization of private capital, no? And this being a very like an important mechanism that everybody is watching for. So what is the, like, is it very broad, or do you go into a very specific also, no? Like, is it a very niche segment, or are you thinking that this is expanding? But please.
Thank you very much. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Okay. Sorry, could we have that one slide up with the structure? If you go forward, 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 and then I'll answer that on the back of this, if you don't mind. Oh, can I use this? Oh, brilliant. Thank you. I won't bore you with a lot of these, but let's go to this quickly, because this will answer this question. So maybe just a bit of quick background on who OFC is and what it is that we do. My background is infrastructure. Sorry, I must put the microphone here. My background is infrastructure in emerging markets. So that's where we started from. So over the last 20 years, we've built probably, I would say, 30% of the infrastructure projects in Latin America and about 80% of infrastructure projects in Africa. Okay, and it sounds impressive until I tell you that we made that much difference in what the need was. So we started looking and said, you can't carry on doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. And then that's how Ocean's Finance Company was started, out of that to say, let's use those same type of principles and apply it in this space and see, can we achieve the outcomes that you want to get out of infra? Because if you think about it, infrastructure, what you're trying to solve for is SDGs. You're not trying to solve for anything else. You're trying to solve for that. So let's see if we could have used that. So let me give you a quick background to how the transaction came about, what our role was, and then to your answer, I'll answer your question. I wonder, is there a pointer? Oh, there is too. If I could. That portion over there is where I'll answer your question around private sector. Let me start by saying that this whole complicated structure come from a big family. I've got to show myself and use my hands. This whole complicated structure was done to do this. Simply and easily, it was done to make sure that we can deliver the impacts out of this project that we want to do. All of this is a means to an end to achieve that. So let's quickly start with how this project started. We were approached by various entities within the public sector as well as private sector within Ecuador to say to us, please can we look at what we can do around the Galápagos and increasing the protection thereof for 3 reasons really. The one was, if you look at it from an environmental perspective, fishing practices globally had increased, so the impacts on the Galápagos Marine Reserve was really being impacted by that. Secondly, from a social perspective, COVID showed that you could not solely rely on tourism and other activities within the Galápagos anymore. So having communities that are now resilient against those type of changes and shocks was a key outcome of what we needed to do as well. And thirdly, the fishing industry in Ecuador is the 2nd largest contributor to GDP after oil. So there were some real reasons why this was done from those perspectives. What we then started looking at was to say, how can we apply the principles of a debt for climate swap that are not new, take some of the principles of infrastructure finance, which are also not new, and project finance, and put it together to really go and supersize a transaction beyond what has been seen before, with the outcome of that in mind. Okay, so that's the background to it. So what was our role in all of this? First of all, we worked with the Pew Battarelli Ocean Legacy team to make sure that we knew what we wanted to do, what those activities needed to look like, and what the budget would be for that. Then we knew exactly how much money we needed to go and raise. And in my simple mind, I always say, this is building the wind farm. Once you know how much a wind farm is going to cost, what it's going to cost to operate it, from there you can go and raise the capital in a way that it's going to deliver the outcome of what the wind farm needs to deliver. And the wind farm needs to deliver cheap, reliable, clean power that people can afford and will make a difference to their lives. That's what wind farms should do. Same thing here. You want a reserve that's going to deliver those impacts and outcomes, what we want to see out of it. Again, nothing new in the infrastructure and project finance world. The first place you start with is you say, let's go and get some credit enhancement. Only guys in town at the time was the USDFC, provide us with an insurance product, similar to what you would have in any infrastructure project, to go and guarantee the type of payments that we want to see out of under an insurance product. Okay. Our friends from IADB also came on board, provided the guarantee that sits behind a liquidity facility effectively in the transaction that further enhanced the capital that we had. And then we also worked with the team at the Ministry of Finance and started identifying exactly which were the bonds that we wanted to go and acquire. These ones over here, exactly the profile that we looked at in terms of, do we target some of the long-dated ones, some of the short-dated ones? What are we trying to solve for? We want to give government some fiscal relief, because without that, there's no debt sustainability. And without debt sustainability, nothing else is going to work in any case. Then, after doing this type of analysis, we then started putting this picture together. And that was the role of OFC in this whole process, was to start putting the contracts in place for the insurance, to go and appoint a bank. We appointed Credit Suisse to start leading the transaction for us, from raising the capital, but also from going to from targeting the bonds and how we're going to acquire them. What was also unique in this transaction that's never been done in any other ones was we did a fully IFC compliant environmental and social impact assessment. That's never been done in any other prior debt for climate swaps. And we did it for a very simple reason, 2 very simple reasons. One is the right thing to do, because without that you're going to have all the criticism around transparency, how do you know communities were involved, all of those things. Part of an IFC performance principles ESIA is exactly that. You've widely consulted with interested and affected parties in the design of what we were going to be doing over here, plus during the whole process, and there's an ongoing process around that. The second reason why we also do it is, if you go and look at the sources of capital, and this is a long way around of getting to private sector, within the capital market side, I keep encroaching on your space. No, you're fine, don't worry. Within this capital market space here, the funding that we went to go and raise, to go and buy those bonds, came from 2 main sources of capital. The one was a source of capital that said, main reason why I'm doing this is because you've now got a AA2 US government-backed bond that you're issuing, and we love that because that's part of our mandate that we need to do. The fact that it's doing well in the Galápagos is secondary for me. I'm still going to put it on my annual report that I'm saving the Galápagos, but the reason why I'm doing it is I'm buying US treasuries. That's it. The second group of investors that we had were people that said, I love it that it's going to the Galápagos. The fact that I'm also getting my money back that I'm putting in, and it's not just going in as a grant that's got to be replenished every year, but actually creates a mechanism to continually fund this, is the reason why I'm doing it. Sadly, the larger portion was the first one and not the second one. And then on our side, this is what I've put up here. As OFC, we put in an additional $90 million over and above the capital market transaction into this transaction as well. That funding comes from our investors, and our main investors are Green Climate Fund, European Union, Government of the Netherlands, Government of the USA, France, most of the Nordics, most of the Scandinavian countries, and they invest directly in us through these type of structures and not through that process over here. So, long way around of going back to two of your questions. What is our role? So our role was putting this picture together, making sure that it's done in the right way with the right players, but going forward, also making sure that we deliver these impacts in a way that we give comfort to everybody in this process. And the main people in this process for us include the local communities and the people of Ecuador. Starts with them. And then after that, everybody else in this process needs to be informed over the entire life of this project that we're delivering what we need to deliver. Why I think, and we're probably the first NGO or the first non-NGO who did a transaction like this. Everybody else up to this date has been an NGO. Why I think that private sector type of interaction going forward is going to be key is two things. One is the level of scrutiny on us is far greater than any NGO. No NGO has that type of reporting framework with those type of stakeholders over that period of time, under that type of level of scrutiny out there. Plus, we were quite surprised to find out that nobody had ever done an IOC environmental and social impact assessment on it. So that's what we would have done in there. So, sorry, long way back now to say, where do I see these transactions going? What do I see the role of the private markets and private capital in these? You can't do these transactions without that. Governments have got limited financial capacity. The public sector in general has got limited financial capacity in general. Multilateral development banks also they've got a lot of funding, but not necessarily enough. The private capital markets sit on $45 trillion that they can direct into these type of transactions through this type of structure. So if we are going to be serious about delivering those outcomes at the top right, that's the only way we're going to be able to do it. Scale, longevity, speed of execution, so that we can stop the biodiversity loss. Okay, sorry, that was a very long answer.
No, that was an excellent, now step by step and detailed description to get to the goal in the top right. Right? Very nice. Thank you so much for that. I wanted to come back to you, Dione, Cassandra, with a question. Sí, en español, por supuesto. No, regresando con una pregunta importante, porque estamos hablando de este instrumento, ¿no?, de canje. ¿Cuáles son otros instrumentos de finanzas climáticas que cuentan Ecuador?
Bueno, creo que ya ahí estoy. Aparte del canje de deuda por naturaleza, tenemos algunos otros instrumentos en los que ya tenemos alguna experticia, como es el hecho del etiquetado climático, que se lo viene trabajando desde el año 2019, del cual hemos sido algunos referentes dando capacitaciones de intercambio a Honduras. Y también tenemos el marco de bonos verdes soberanos del Ecuador, que fue emitido durante este año y el cual tiene una perspectiva de ser generado como marco de bonos verdes sostenibles, es decir, la incorporación, aparte del enfoque verde, el enfoque social, no solamente ambiental. También se está trabajando en este momento en el marco regulatorio de gobernanza de la taxonomía verde. Y se piensa generar un nuevo bono azul.
Muy bueno. Entonces hay toda esta variedad de opciones y alternativas que puede hacer canje, emisiones, ¿no? Para diferentes. Y también hay emisiones sociales también, ¿no? No solo para clima, ¿no? Que Ecuador está listo para hacer.
Sí, sí, por supuesto que sí, es parte de la necesidad real que existe de articular las tres brechas completamente, que se los mira con un enfoque completamente separado de política pública, cuando el rol en general es parte de la fusión y de la coordinación de los tres sectores como tal. Por eso pretendemos ir hacia una evolución de bonos sostenibles.
Muchas gracias. Eric, why do you think that oceans should play a more relevant role in climate negotiations?
I can probably go for all the obvious ones that everybody knows. You know, how much it contributes towards carbon sequestration, how much it contributes towards, stopping all kinds of bad things happening. So we can definitely. But for me, it goes a little bit deeper than that. If you look at oceans, it's probably one of the most tangible ways that communities are connected globally. We used to focus on the air, because everybody says what you put in the air comes out somewhere else. And in any case, so let's start with emissions, because you know what you exhale, I've got to inhale somewhere else. Oceans are no different. What we put into the ocean in one place comes out in another place. So unless we start having that type of mindset to say, your ocean is my ocean, it's going to be very tricky. And that's why it has to be front and center, I think, in these negotiations. And then going back in history, 2.4 billion years ago, the ocean started producing the oxygen that we breathe. So it's provided us with a solution before. Before that, it was sulfates out in the atmosphere and all kinds of other things we were living. And suddenly the ocean said, hold on a second, I've got this thing called blue-green algae, and it's going to start oxygenating the air. So we'd be very silly to leave the oceans out of where we're going, because it's the reason why we were here in the first place. So I'm not going to delve on all the other technical bits of what everybody else in this room knows far better than I do.
No, very good. I wanted to see if anyone has any question that would like to ask them. This precious, no? I wanted to think about the future here. I wanted to ask each one of you to just reflecting on the future. There will be in different aspects, like for Ecuador. Ahora a mí me gustaría pensar en el futuro, ¿no? ¿Cuáles son para terminarmos, ¿no? La sesión? Pero pensando en el futuro, ¿cuáles son las transacciones utilizando este mecanismo de canje que piensas que Ecuador podría utilizar de otras formas? Y también si piensas que este es un tipo de mecanismo que podría ahí ser utilizado más allá que solo el soberano, ¿no? Solo el gobierno, pero si hay otras alternativas. Por ejemplo, estamos hablando mucho aquí de la Amazonia, ¿no? ¿Hay alguna oportunidad de canje que podría ahí contribuir para el desarrollo de la Amazonia?
Es una oportunidad completamente potencial si hacemos un poco un poco de lógica existe, y todos sabemos que hay un conjunto de países deudores. Porque de algunas entidades acreedoras que son las mismas que todos, que son un patrón común para los países deudores. ¿Por qué no formar un conjunto de países deudores y establecer nuestras propias políticas, establecer ya un precio razonable por región al carbono. De las palabras que acabas de mencionar, lo más importante ya no es el ejercicio conjunto que hacemos cada uno de los países, sino es una conjugación necesaria de voluntades políticas y de voluntades necesarias no solamente para salvar la naturaleza, sino la sostenibilidad en general.
Muy bueno, muy bueno. Eric, if we think about like 5 years from now, we are to come back and see different structures out there. Would you expect to be more of this type, like a replicator, or do you think there will be any further development and for what uses? 5 years from now, what is your view?
I really hope so, is the short answer, and I hope there's a lot more people doing it. The biodiversity collapse risk for us is massive. If we don't do something now, 5 years is a bit late. Will it look exactly like that? I don't think so. In fact, I know it won't necessarily look like that. I think things are evolving. We've taken even the lessons out of Galápagos, and we're already implementing that in our next projects and our next ones. What is extremely encouraging and why I think these type of structures are going to go to is you're actually going to see a lot more direct private sector to private sector type of refinancing or financing type of transactions happening in this space because of a very simple thing that's happening. Businesses are starting to realize the risk of biodiversity loss to them. And it's not a CSR type of thing anymore. It is a business as usual imperative type of thing for them. I don't know how many of you have read the EIB report that they released a little while ago on business risks within loans in the EIB structure. A lot of businesses are starting to think that way. They're going, just the brief summary on it was, EIB went and they took a look at about 3 million businesses in Europe to take a look which of those had a direct risk to their business underlying model as a result of biodiversity loss. 81% I think was the number. They went, holy crap, let's go and look at our own book, and they suddenly saw that more than 70% of their own book had that type of exposure. So the minute that starts getting into the fray, these type of structures are going to start coming into play from that perspective, where business suddenly realize it's going to cost me less to invest in protecting biodiversity than the potential loss of income I'm going to have as a result of a loss of that biodiversity. So that's where those structures I think will be in about 5 years' time, hopefully. And then I'm going to use this platform to just congratulate the IDB, because I think of all the banks and MDBs that we've seen out there, you guys think about this in a far better way than most others that I've seen. So I hope to see you guys in one of these in 5 years' time, and bringing in other friends and family to come and join the party as well.
Thank you very much, Eric. Now, in fact, like just to mention that during COP, we signed with other international financial institutions a joint declaration saying that we are going to lead a task force together with the FC now to boost transactions like this and the use of credit enhancements. So we are going to start in January an action plan to boost that, and comes at a perfect time that our president Elon is very bullish on this type of operations, because right now we are living a world that, as you were mentioning, about much more like everybody's more conscious and getting more conscious of the risks as well. No? So it's not only like the impact that this can have. No? And then we are talking about innovation, but with impact. So it's integrating this, and this instrument brings exactly that. No, so you're not going to see only 5 years from now, but we have a huge pipeline of others that are coming, no, soon. A mí me gustaría mucho agradecer, ¿no? por la participación, fue buenísimo, muy rica, ¿no? Todos los detalles de esta operación que fue emblemática, ¿no? La operación. Realmente increíble. Congratulaciones a todos, ¿no? Por eso. I think that with that we can wrap up, and I would like to thank both of you for this discussion.